When the slap landed on my face, the burning wasn't only on my skin but it shattered every dream I had built over the last 5 years. My body staggered backward but my mind was trapped, replaying Hassan's cold words. "You're just pregnant, you're not dying." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. I wasn't weak. I couldn't afford to be now. My name is Harper, and this is the story of how I learned the hard way that love, family, and loyalty are not the same. Not always what they seem. I met Hassan 5 years ago when I was 28 and working as a content strategist in Austin, Texas. At 33, he was an up-and-coming real estate developer, confident, eloquent, and attentive. Our romance was whirlwind and led to what I thought was the perfect marriage. I had a cozy home, a comfortable life, and dreams of building a future together. For the first few years, everything seemed to fit perfectly, until his family came between us. His 30-year-old sister, Sophia, was a wedding planner, and his mother, Diana, a widow with an overwhelming influence over him. At first, I admired their closeness, but it wasn't long before I saw the cracks. Diana would make subtle but hurtful criticisms, and Sophia would follow her lead. Hassan always ignored my concerns, leaving me to silently endure the insults. But the real nightmare began when I got pregnant, and the complications weren't long in coming. The dizziness, the exhaustion, and eventually the blurred vision made the simplest tasks difficult. I needed Hassan's support, but instead, he became distant, spending most of his time at his mother's house or helping Sophia with her wedding planning. I was 8 months pregnant, and the wedding was just days away when everything spiraled out of control. The night before Hassan was to travel to New York for Sophia's wedding, I logged into our joint bank account to pay some hospital bills. My heart stopped when I saw the balance. Almost all the money was gone. Panic set in as I reviewed the transactions. Tens of thousands of dollars had been withdrawn, leaving us with barely a few hundred. I stormed into the living room where Hassan was sitting on the couch, checking his phone. "Hassan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "where is all our money?" He didn't even look up. "I used it for Sophia's wedding," he replied as if it were the most normal thing in the world. My hands trembled. "That money was for the hospital bills for the baby. How could you do this to us?" I asked, my voice cracking. Hassan finally looked up, his expression cold. "Stop exaggerating, Harper. The wedding is important. You'll find a way to pay the bills." His indifference left me breathless. "I'm 8 months pregnant. I can barely afford the medical care I need, and you expect me to just figure it out?" "Yes," he said, standing up. "You always make everything about you." Before I could respond, his hand went up. The slap hit me hard enough to make me stumble backward. I brought my hand to my burning cheek as tears welled up in my eyes. I stood there frozen as he gathered his things. Diana and Sophia were waiting at the door, ready to leave for the airport. Sophia smirked. "Don't be so dramatic, Harper," she said condescendingly. Hassan didn't even turn around as he followed her out the door, leaving me there alone and shaking. The sound of the door closing echoed through the house, leaving an unsettling silence. My hands trembled as I cradled my belly, feeling the small but constant kicks of my unborn twins. Yes, twins. Hassan didn't even know because I hadn't told him yet. What was the point now? He had emptied our savings, hit me, and abandoned me when I needed him most. I tried to breathe calmly, but my mind was racing as I checked the bank account again, hoping it was a mistake. It wasn't. The money was gone. They had taken it for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. The rent was due in 2 weeks, the hospital bills were piling up, and I had no way to pay anything. Tears streamed down my face as reality crashed down on me. I was alone. With trembling hands, I dialed Hassan's number, not because I expected him to answer, but because I was desperate. It rang once, twice, straight to voicemail. I tried Diana, then Sophia. Nothing. I couldn't breathe. A wave of panic settled in my chest. The stress overwhelmed me until a sharp pain shot through my abdomen. I suddenly doubled over, gripping the arm of the couch as the stabbing intensified. I told myself it was just stress until I felt it, a trickle of warm liquid running down my leg. Fear filled my chest. My water had broken. I wasn't ready. The babies weren't due for several more weeks. My heart pounded as I frantically searched for my phone and dialed the only number I could trust, my best friend Rachel. She answered on the third ring, her voice initially sleepy, immediately changing to alarm when she heard me gasp. Harper? What's wrong? I think I'm in labor. I tried to choke back the sobs, but my voice cracked. Stay where you are, I'm coming, she said without hesitation. When Rachel arrived, I was on the floor, clutching my stomach in agony. She rushed to help me up and guided me to her car. The drive to the hospital was a whirlwind of pain, fear, and exhaustion. The last thing I remember is Rachel's voice, holding my hand and whispering, "You're not alone, Harper. You're going to be okay." When I woke up, the sterile smell of the hospital filled my senses. The soft beeping of monitors was the only sound in the room. My body felt heavy, but the unbearable pain was gone. I slowly turned my head toward the small bassinets next to my bed. My breath caught in my throat when I saw them. 2 tiny bundles wrapped in soft blankets, sleeping peacefully. A boy and a girl. Tears rolled freely down my face as I reached out to touch their tiny hands. Their warmth anchored me to reality in a way I desperately needed. I felt Rachel appear beside me, her eyes full of tenderness and comfort. Perfect, she whispered. Strong and healthy. I sobbed silently, overwhelmed with relief. I had done it. Despite everything being against me, I had brought them into the world. But as I looked at their little faces, reality hit me hard. This wasn't just about me anymore. I now had 2 lives depending on me. I couldn't afford to make any more mistakes. Staying with Hassan was not an option. He had proven it to me time and time again. I meant nothing to him, and I wasn't going to let him ruin my life or my children's. Rachel seemed to read my thoughts and placed a hand on my shoulder. You know what you have to do, she said softly. I nodded, clenching my jaw. I'm leaving him. As soon as I was discharged from the hospital, the first thing I did was file for divorce. Without hesitation, without fear. I had nothing left to lose. Hassan was still in New York when the papers were served. When he returned, he was ready to carry on as if nothing had happened. He walked into the house with his typical arrogance, tossed his jacket on the couch, and didn't even flinch until he saw the divorce papers on the kitchen table. He smirked. You're overreacting, he said dismissively, pushing the papers aside. My hands clenched into fists. Overreacting, I repeated, my voice trembling with rage. You spent all our savings, abandoned me when I was 8 months pregnant. I gave birth alone. I had to figure everything out on my own. Hassan rolled his eyes. But you handled it, didn't you? And that's when I understood. He never cared, he never would. You're a damn monster, Hassan, I whispered. And I'm done with you. As the divorce proceedings progressed, I uncovered the ultimate betrayal. Hassan had been having an affair with Victoria, a wealthy investor he met at work. While I struggled to survive, he was dining at fancy restaurants and attending exclusive events with her. The betrayal should have shattered me, but all I felt was a cold emptiness. I was too tired of having my heart broken. The divorce continued, and my only priority was building a future for my children. Hassan, on the other hand, barely put up a fight, too confident in his new relationship with Victoria. He believed she was his ticket to a better life. During our last conversation, he looked at me with a cocky smile. You're going to regret this, Harper, he said confidently. I'm about to be rich, and you'll still be struggling in that little apartment of yours. I stared at him, and for the first time I saw the man he truly was, a man who had built his entire life on illusions. He wasn't worth wasting any more words on. I didn't respond. When the divorce was finalized, I put all my energy into rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy. Balancing my work as a freelance web designer with childcare and recovering from the complications of pregnancy left me exhausted. There were nights when I cried silently, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. But I never allowed myself to break. My children needed me. Meanwhile, Hassan and Victoria flaunted their luxurious lifestyle on social media. Pictures of exotic vacations, dinners at high-end restaurants, and exclusive parties filled my feed. His mother, Diana, and his sister, Sophia, still clung to him, proud of their connection to Victoria's wealth. But I ignored it all. I focused on what truly mattered, my children and our future. Until one afternoon, my phone vibrated with a message from Rachel. Harper, you're not going to believe this. Check the news. I opened the link, my heart racing. And there it was on the front page. Victoria had been running a massive financial scam. moving millions through fake investments and defrauding wealthy clients. She had emptied Hassan's accounts and disappeared overnight. His house, his cars, his savings all gone. He was left with nothing but debt and public humiliation. My breath hitched as I read the article. Diana had lost her home. Sophia's marriage crumbled when her in-laws learned of the scandal. Hassan was banned from the real estate industry. His name was marked as a stain that no one wanted to be associated with. I sat there processing it all. A wave of satisfaction washed over me. This was pure simple karma. Days later my phone rang again. I looked at the screen. Margaret's name. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Curiosity got the better of me. Hello. I answered. There was silence. Then a familiar voice whispered. Harper. I closed my eyes. I recognized him instantly. Hassan. But this time he didn't sound arrogant or condescending. He sounded empty, defeated. I have nowhere else to go, he murmured. I have nothing. No house, no money, no family. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of his words sink in. He had lost everything and yet I felt nothing.
No simpate, no anger, no satisfaction.
Just emptiness. I'm sorry, Harper, he continued, his voice cracking. For everything. I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. I don't think you understand what that means, Hassan. Can we talk? He asked desperately. Just a minute. I smiled faintly. I knew exactly what to say. Hassan, you're a stranger to me now. I owe you nothing. And with that I hung up. No second chances.
No forgiveness.
Just peace. I sat there for a long time, letting the weight of the closure wash over me. For years I had been trapped in a cycle of betrayal and pain. But now I was free. Free to live, free to love, free to give my children the life they deserved. Hassan was nothing more than a lesson. A warning of what happens when you let someone else hold the pen to your story. But not anymore. Now I was the author and I was writing a future filled with strength, love, and hope. My past didn't define me. I had taken back my life and this was just the beginning.